so one of the first topics that we wanted to jump into was, I believe it was talking a little bit more about the world tiers and the Capstone dungeons, I believe.
Yeah, because that's basically the gateway into all the other topics, right? Because we have the world tier system is like the different difficulties, and the Capstone dungeons is how you unlock those and then get access to all that end game stuff. So I think we have some footage to show while Joe, you want to talk us?
Yeah, let's talk about this. So yeah, I guess the first thing we want to talk about here is when players are going through the base game experience, they're finishing the campaign, they reach level 50, they get to move into their first world tier content, which is the Nightmare tier. But before they gain access to that, they actually are going to have to go through what we call one of our end cap dungeons. These are longer and more challenging dungeon spaces that have big boss encounters mixed throughout. They kind of serve as like milestones where players are expected to pass in order to gain access to that next world tier. Now, Riker, when you were playing, you had a chance to actually check out your first end cap dungeon, or at least as part of this test. Like, what was your experience playing through this?
Yeah, so the first end cap dungeon, all right. I was one of those guys who was saying veteran difficulty is too easy, crank it up. So end cap dungeon, I think the first one, it's recommended level 50. I was level 45, thought I was a hotshot, went in there. It was a humbling experience. That's how I discovered that, yeah, if you die enough times, you got to go back to town to repair your gear. So hardcore players beware. I had to learn boss mechanics, study, adjust my build, and eventually put my tail between my legs, go power up a bit more before trying it again. But then conquering it felt like a really great achievement, very satisfying.
Yeah, these aren't really spaces we expect players to want to go and try to farm and try to get a lot of things out of. It's more, these are milestones, gates for players to pass in order to gain access to that Nightmare tier. Once the players actually get into this next world tier 3, they're going to get access to a few new features. We're going to talk about a number of them today. So you'll start to see that areas of the world are going to be affected by the Helltide system. You're going to get access to Nightmare dungeons. You're going to start to see unique items begin to drop in different parts of the game. And then you're going to start to see sacred and ancestral items also begin to appear in World Tiers 3, and then particularly in 4. And also, in addition to those things, the world, of course, is becoming more dangerous as the players step into Nightmare and Torment tiers, World Tiers 3 and 4 respectively. Monsters can do more damage. They are going to be more aggressive. There's a number of changes. Joe, do you have any thoughts on some of the changes that we made to monsters in World Tiers?
Yeah. You know, one of the things I love about the Capstone dungeons functioning as unlocks for the world tiers is that you've got the general gameplay loop of getting more powerful, optimizing your build, getting more gear, and then you have something that you're testing yourself against. And then when you defeat that, you move into this entirely new world tier with all of the additional systems and mechanics and features that unlock. So you're really moving into a place where new stuff is happening. You're unlocking new cool stuff.
Yeah, enemies are more aggressive, they're more accurate, they're faster, they're moving more quickly. You start to deal with champion creatures, which are just more powerful minions that can show up in your elites and be affected in certain ways.
That's right. The monsters have certain cooldowns between their attacks. They have logic for how they do targeting. They have projectiles. Some projectiles have seeking,
True, yeah.
So they can home to some extent, and they have some logic about how they group up and how they decide which people to target. And so a lot of those different parameters we adjust as you go up in world tiers to make the monsters more threatening. Because of course the players are getting more familiar with the game. They're getting more skilled. And they're also getting access to more tools in terms of new abilities through legendary powers or even unique items.
Right? Yeah. And one of the things we wanted to make sure we didn't do too much is it's easy for us to imagine that we could just make the game more difficult by increasing the damage the creatures deal or increasing the amount of hit points they have as you're going through these encounters. But we wanted to make sure that the world felt more dangerous as you progress into these higher world tiers. And that requires more work when working with monsters and those various encounters to kind of create that extra level of challenge. Did you kind of determine and sense anything, kind of going from World Tiers 1 and 2 into World Tiers 3 or 4?
Oh, I definitely felt it. You stated in the difficulty descriptions, I guess I just glossed over it and I just expected more damage, more health. Yeah, I know how difficulty works. But I started to feel, the world just seems more hostile, more aggressive. And that's when I realized, there's a lot more at play in the increased difficulty here than just bigger numbers, which is nice.
There's one more thing I want to talk about with regards to world tiers as well. And I'm very excited about this talk in general. I've been waiting to have a lot of these conversations and with the audience so they can kind of convey some of the more interesting depth and complexities associated with some of the systems. So in World Tiers, you gain access to two new sets of itemization tiers. In World Tier 3, you gain access to sacred items that may appear for you. And then World Tier 4, you gain access to ancestral items that could be dropped for players as they're going through those spaces. Now, with the players leveling up from 1 to 50, the items that you're getting from monsters that you're killing are going to be, the power is going to be based on their strength and level. So if you are, you're playing in the beta and you're killing level 35 monsters for whatever reason, and you're going to be getting slightly more powerful gear as a result of that because the monsters are more challenging and they're going to be dropping better gear for you. But once you have reached level 50, and that basically that flow means that as you're leveling up and you're fighting more challenging things, you're going to continue to slowly upgrade all of your gear over time. You'll find a ring here, and a helmet there, a pair of gloves. That's great. That's how we want you to kind of get exposed to itemization systems as you're progressing through initially in the game. But once you get into World Tier 3, things change a little bit. So items that drop you have a chance to be sacred. Not every item in World Tier 3 is sacred by default. The higher the level of the creature that you're fighting, the more likely the chances that items dropped from that creature will be sacred in nature, or also based on the kind of content you're completing. But sacred items, when they drop, they drop at a very large range in terms of the power that they can have. So you could get into World Tier 3, you could kill a pack of elites in your first dungeon in World Tier 3 at level 50. And you can get an item out of that group. Maybe it's a rare item that drops up in that group that is powerful enough that could serve a level 70 character. So the sacred item tier basically is going to have gear in it that goes from level 50 all the way up to level 70 in terms of the power swing there. Once you get a little bit higher, it's a little more likely to get slightly higher in the range, but it's very likely you can get those really, really great drops really early, which we think is super exciting because we want you to be trying to always be looking for just the right ring, and it could show up your best in slot ring for that for a sacred tier might show up at level 51, and that might be the one that you want to hold on to for the entirety of that tier.
And you're talking about when you're talking about these sacred items, the level requirement for this ring, for example, is not 70, right?
No. So the level, that's a great point, Joe. So the level requirement for this is actually to be set at the level at which you actually loot the item. So once again, we have trading in the game. If you are level 50 and you get a really, really great ring drop, that's going to be good for not quite your build, but maybe you're playing a bleed barbarian. This is really, really good for a berserk build or a big fury build. And you say, okay, I want to give this to you. Can hold on to it. That could be a really valuable item to trade because it could be that its eye power is such that it's really good for a level 70 character, but the required level for the ring itself is level 50 because you got it at level 50, and that's going to raise with the course of time. We think that's going to be super fun for players to chase. And there's more of that as you get into the ancestral tier, but that's not all. I think the next thing we're talking about is actually legendary and unique items. So, all right. We've talked a little bit about legendary items in the past. I really want to focus on things that we haven't spent a ton of time discussing, but to give a general overview, legendary items in general are attached to legendary powers. And these legendary powers, or reverse, legendary powers attached to legendary items. Legendary powers basically are designed to appear on multiple different slots. So, an aspect might appear on an amulet, but it might also appear on gloves, or it might appear on ring, or it might also appear on weapons. These things have a tendency to be in a lot of different places based on the power itself. And we like this because it lets players extract aspects and powers from items and put them into other items that meet these certain criteria. And it's fun because we want players to go and be chasing certain fantasies. It helps them kind of hone in on certain kinds of builds and gets them excited about the potential of kind of taking all these different Legos and kind of putting them together. Can I say Legos on stream?
Yes. Legendaries, yeah.
Legendaries is what I'm talking about. So once you get all of these legendaries together and you put them together, that's gonna be really, really fun. So that's part of the fantasy we think of legendary items. Did you actually get a chance when you're going through 1 to 50? There's only a certain number of these that are actually available. But when you get into World Tiers 3 and 4, more legendary powers are available. Did you get a chance to see any new legendary powers as you were playing?
Oh yeah, I definitely got to see a variety of legendary powers. I got a certain number of drops. Drop rates didn't feel out of control, but you guys gave me some pre-made characters as well that were decked out with builds, and I saw lots of cool synergistic powers that came together to really make a build flow well. And I think my favorite power was probably on actually a unique item, and it was for the druid that made your werewolf form your true form. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people have been saying, hey, can I just be a werewolf all the time?
Yep.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah, that's the next step, right? So unique items. So unique items only begin to appear when players enter the Nightmare tier. So once you're in World Tier 3, there's a low chance that some of the game's unique items will begin to appear for players as they're progressing through this experience. And they're very, very rare. These are huge chase items and opportunities here. Some of them are really important for build making. Some open up a whole different build paths and opportunities for players to go and pursue. These are things that are designed to be really exciting, like what you suggest there when you had that experience trying to gather the werewolf. The ability to stay in werewolf form effectively forever with that druid unique. Really cool stuff. And there's more of these unlock over the course of your level progression as well.
I think I saw Shaco earlier there in the list of unique items.
That's correct. Shaco does make a return, and there's lots of opportunities for us to basically kind of pay homage to items that came in previous versions of Diablo, previous entries in the series. You'll see a number of different items make returns. Items like Grandfather, Shaco, obviously. You'll see a few familiar, and then a few familiar favorites, and then more over the course of the game's live development.